Hey guys, it's Coop from Garage Gym Reviews. And today we're reviewing one of the most reviewed fitness products on Amazon. It has over 21,000 reviews. Yes, I don't know if there's another gym product I've seen besides maybe Shake Weight that has more reviews than that, and it's still 4.5 stars. Not that that really means anything, but it's actually so light you can throw it. Thank you, Sam. This is the Flybird adjustable bench. As you can see, it's designed to be very compact, very lightweight, and it's also very cheap. One of the cheapest adjustable benches on the market. Today, I'm gonna walk through and show you how it works. I'm going to tell you about my experience with using it. I'm gonna review it. I'm also gonna compare it to some other options. And then lastly, we're gonna test the weight capacity because it says, although it only weighs around 25 pounds, that it can hold over 800 pounds. So we must test it. Let's get into the review. So as you can see, one of the most remarkable features of this bench is that it can fold up. There are not a lot of adjustable benches that I know that can fold up in this way. The way that we often see adjustable benches being stood up is like this one. So kind of the new feature for most home gym benches is trying to save space is they stand up like this. Very few can actually fold up, which is kind of cool in case I want to go to the park and carry my bench. Just kidding, probably won't do that. But this one does have the ability to fold up and be stored away. So that allows you to store it up on the wall, store it under something, things like that. Because I would guess that people that are purchasing this bench oftentimes don't have a dedicated space, like an entire garage gym to training. Like they're using it more and like pulling it out, using it, and this kind of fits that area. So it folds up like this. And then if you want to fold it out, there's this pop pin right here. I pull out, make sure you don't lose this because if you do lose this, you're really not gonna be able to use it because this keeps the bench kind of together when it's also fully out. So I pull it out and then place this pin back in and then you can start using it. Now this, as you can see, is a decline bench. This is actually an FID bench. So it's designed to be used as a flat bench, a decline bench, an very extreme decline, by the way, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later, but almost too extreme, and an incline bench. So the current way that it's set up is more for decline. I don't really know many people's bodies that work this way, so in order to start using it, you really wanna lift this up, and it uses pop pins. So this is a pop pin style bench, which is something that we often see with more expensive benches, whereas something like that, which is a budget-friendly version of their more expensive bench. That is much more expensive than this, by the way. But this is using pop pins that we see on commercial style benches. Then this comes up as well with a pop pin and then can go in different increments. Now, this is designed to be used for incline. So in being designed to use for incline, you want to use it at different increments, which this has. In fact, let me just go through the positions. In order to be used as a flat, incline, and decline bench, it needs some adjustment positions. So actually the back has 7 positions, which I really like. So it has the ability to go all the way to decline, which is a very extreme decline. I actually wouldn't suggest using it like this. I think this, how much of a decline, how aggressive this is more so it folds up flat rather than to be used, although you could use it if you want to. But if you're really gonna use it for decline, you wanna go to the next pin, which is about here, which is a much less decline, but I actually feel like it works pretty well for people that want to decline press or want to use it sit-ups in some way. So this has 7 different positions, all the way up to a more military style press of 90-degree angle. I mean, it's pretty steep angle. And then you can go back down. The C-pad has 3 positions. So it can go from a more flat position there's the first pop pin, there's the other hole, and here's the other hole. And these are really designed to keep you within the bench when you're using it at an incline or you want to use it more for decline. But the other addition on this, because you are using it for decline and you need somewhere to hold your feet, is this foot roller right here. And the foot roller uses a pop pin as well. I actually dislike these type of pop pins. The reason being, people end up losing them. Just make sure whenever you pull it, you remember where you put it and then put it back in, because once it's gone, you have nothing to adjust that with, and it's not like a standardized size. So this has 4 positions for the rollers. So it allows you to put your feet under. And I actually noticed the previous version of this is kind of an encouragement to Flybird, is they've iterated this bench multiple times, because I went through some of the reviews on Amazon and a lot of them were like crapping on the bench from like 2017. And what they were saying was, one example was like the foot roller is impossible to get your feet in because it only had 1 adjustment. Well, they decided to go back and change it and now it has 4 adjustments. So at least, even though this is a very cheap bench, even though it's from a company that a lot of people haven't heard of, they're listening to customers and making iterations on it, which I think is cool. Okay, so as far as overall dimensions of what you want to know, a couple things to look out for any bench. Number 1 is the pad gap. If you're using this as a dedicated flat bench, which I would guess a lot of people are if this is the only bench they're buying, then you've got to watch out for the gap. And this has a 2-inch gap. I mean, that's like a buck teeth gap. That's a pretty big gap. Most benches today have a thinner gap than that. It's very nice if they do. I did notice something though that is kind of thoughtful for Flybird, is they actually angled the foam within the pad. Something you don't see with a lot of cheaper companies, like they don't think of the details. And this is a detail that is actually kind of thoughtful because it allows you to bring this back pad all the way up while also bringing the seat pad up. And so it can actually, without like scrunching everything together, it fits pretty nicely. But that 2-inch gap does not feel good when you're benching on a flat bench. So just understand, if you're looking to use it for that and used to really nice benches that you use at your commercial gym, you're starting a home gym, you may not like that very much. Now the other thing to watch out for is the height of the bench pad when it's flat in relationship to the floor. Okay, the higher up it is, the harder it is to get your feet under, especially if you're somebody with not very long levers or something like that, so it can be hard to drive through the floor. The IPF standard for most benches is 17 inches. So if you're looking for like a standard, 17 inches is the standard that everybody really tries to meet. This one is actually 19 inches from the floor to the top of the pad. Not a major deal for most people, but something to be aware of. Then you have the padding. And the padding is not good. It's about what you'd expect to pay for a $150 adjustable bench. This actually, out of everything on this bench, I mean, the padding is the most disappointing to me. It is very firm. It's almost like they've got 2 parts here. There's like this very soft top part that you put any pressure, you immediately get to the second layer, which feels just like very hard. And the vinyl on here is extremely cheap. What I foresee happening is this vinyl ripping very easily. I would just be careful with it. Make sure you're not wearing a belt while you're lifting and things like that. Also understand, like I wouldn't put this by things that could rip it. If you want this to last, this vinyl is very cheap and will rip, and the foam is not good. Now, it's expected for the price, but just understand, like just from an honest perspective, this foam is not good. Now the foam does extend all the way over on this side, and it needs to, because then you're putting your feet underneath here on these foam rollers. Now these foam rollers are very similar to the foam that's used within this. It's not good. It's very thin. I think it's fine for the use case and for the price. Just understand you're not getting some of those like really thick, dense foams that you get from some of the higher, more expensive and more quality benches. So that goes in there. And also understand when you're using this, something I noticed is because this foam is very hard and there's not just a crazy amount of it over this lip, it just feels kind of uncomfortable if you're using it for decline sit-ups and things like that on the back of your knees. Okay, now one of the benefits of this bench that I've noticed is just how light it is. And this bench, if you're a heavy lifter, if you're somebody who's lifting a lot, I don't think this bench is made for you. I think they market it towards people of every capacity. So anybody, if you can lift up to 800 pounds, this is a bench you could use. I don't really think that. The reason being is it's only 25 pounds, which means it's not very stable. It's a very lightweight bench. Now that's nice for people that want to move it in and out of things, and they'd prefer the portability of it versus the stability, but just understand that's one of the trade-offs. Now, they're saying that this bench can hold 800 pounds. Before I get into kind of my pros and cons and my recommendation, we should test that claim. So, without further ado, let's stack a bunch of weight on it and see if it holds. Okay, so we're gonna test how much weight to a certain capacity this can hold. Now, 800 pounds, I would never trust this thing with 800 pounds, just being honest. The other thing to recognize is they could say 800 pounds. We don't know where on the bench they tested 800 pounds. Really, a true bench test, especially for an incline, would be where it's most likely to break. Where is it most likely to break if it has weight? right here. And this is where most of the weight when you're benching is gonna be anyway. So you have your weight, so let's say you weigh 200 pounds, but that's spread out evenly. Then you have, let's say you can bench up to 600 pounds, which would meet the 800 pound limit. But the majority of the weight is gonna be where you're benching. And where you're benching is on your chest. That's where the weight's gonna be. So if I'm here and I'm benching here, that means the weight is gonna be past that joint where it is most likely to fail. So because of that, we are going to test by putting a bunch of weight right here where it would be to test. I would guess when they say 800 pound capacity, they're testing like somewhere here, but the true test I think is over here. Now I'm probably not gonna put 800 pounds because I really don't wanna break it, but I want to show you for those of you that have bought this or are thinking about buying it, if it can actually hold a certain amount for most people. And I think a good weight amount is like 315 pounds. I probably wouldn't suggest somebody that's benching a lot over 300 often to buy a bench like this. Like, you might as well get a dedicated bench. I'll talk more about that in a moment, but let's test that. Let's do it. All right, so I'm gonna start with 25 kilo plates or about 55 pounds. Okay, so we placed 440 pounds on the weakest part of the bench. We could go up higher. This satisfies me, it should satisfy you. I would not bench over this. Honestly, I'd be careful benching this much. But if you are benching this much, every once in a while, you can be sure, at least in this capacity, it can hold. Okay, let me take you over to the garage again, and I'll tell you what I think about it versus other benches and some of the pros and cons. Let's do it. Okay, so we've tested the weight capacity. I've shown you what it can do. Now let me tell you what I think about it versus others. First off, on the pros side, it's pretty cheap. Like it's 150 bucks around there, depending on the sale, for an adjustable bench. A bench that you can use for flat, incline, and decline. This is how I view some of these cheaper products. I view them as gateway drugs. Gateway drugs to spending tens of thousands of dollars on a home gym. Oftentimes what happens is people decide, I want to leave my commercial gym and I want to work out at home. But they're trying to do so by trying to save money. So it makes sense to try and get products that are cheaper so you are legitimately saving money. Products like this allow you to get in the door and get a feeling for using a home gym, decide if you like it, and then spend more money. And then you sell the product that you had previously or give it to a friend who is also reading and digesting the garage gym gospel and then decides for them to start a garage gym. This product is just that. It's a cheap product that allows people to get in the door, decide and get their feet wet, and then ultimately get a better product. This is not, in my opinion, for most people, a product that's gonna last for their entire training life if they're lifting heavy. But on the pro side, it has a lot more pros than just the price and the value. Another one is that it's very compact. So you can fold it up, put it in place, and it's also lightweight. This is one of my problems right now with a lot of equipment manufacturers, is they're trying to make things bigger and heavier and more heavy duty. Yet, and I just told Sam this previously, every time we test a product on weight capacity, I'm consistently surprised because almost every time they hold more weight than I expected. And this one is a perfect example. A $150 bench, we put weight at the absolute weakest point and it held over 440 pounds. Actually, it held 440 plus my body weight. So, I mean, almost, what is that, 900 pounds? 1,000 pounds? 5,000 pounds? No, I mean, it held a lot of weight right there at the weakest point. I mean, this bench, for the price, is, I mean, strong enough for I think a lot of people can do. Another thing it does is it goes flat, incline, and decline. In fact, that's something that I've gotten some critiques on is people saying, Coop, you ought to review more FID benches because people do like decline. Personally, I don't do a lot of decline work, or if I do it in a way where I lift my bench and then I put a foot roller in on the opposite end. But I know a lot of people that are coming from a commercial gym are used to using a decline bench and want that ability when they're at home gym, and this allows that. So those are some really pros that I think this has, that it can also compete with other benches. Now, here's the downside and some of the cons. It's just cheaply made. Like, we know that. It's made in China, it says that on the sticker. It's got cheap fabric, cheap foam that's, you know, really like just hard. Although it does have the incline and decline options, it just doesn't feel crazy secure at those. It's not a bench that you're looking to use when you want to do a really max lift and want a ton of stability. Like, it's just, kind of inherent. You get what you pay for oftentimes, and this is an instance of that. In addition to that, just some of the, I think, things that they looked over, like I would have loved this if it had a little bit lower height, so if it was more close to 17 inches. Would have also loved it if it had a thinner pad gap. That would have made it nicer when you're using it for flat bench, because this back pad isn't so long that you can use your full body on it when you're benching. You're gonna have to come into contact with the pad gap when you bench. So you gotta understand, like, you're just gonna have to be okay with that when you're benching. So do I recommend this? I recommend this for people that want an adjustable bench and don't want to spend a lot of money, but don't plan to lift a ton of weight on it. Okay, it can hold, we showed it holding a bunch of weight, but I just don't feel very confident. I wouldn't personally, so therefore I wouldn't recommend you personally feel very confident in using a ton of weight often on a bench of this sort. But if you're trying to decide if you want to lift at home, or you're using a lot of adjustable dumbbells or something like that, you're doing a ton of dumbbell work, and you're not worried about lifting very heavy on it, and you want the portability and kind of the ability to put it under something, I think this can work. But for a heavy lifter, and a lot of our audience, what I'd probably recommend is buying a flat bench instead. Because you can get a very solid flat bench that you would never have to upgrade from, could work very well for all flat work, and if you really wanted to, you could put it up on blocks or something to use incline work, to then wet your whistle to decide if you want to really have a home gym, and then you go buy a nicer adjustable bench. And therefore you have a dedicated flat bench and a dedicated adjustable bench that work very well. That would be my recommendation for a lot of you. Now, in mentioning a cheaper flat bench that you could use instead of the Flybird adjustable bench, an example of this would be something like the Grind bench. They basically took a lot of the things you see on a premium bench that use the tripod design and implemented it in a cheaper solution and lighter solution. So it does have a grippy top. It does have the 17 inches from the top of the pad to the floor. It does have the tripod design so you can tuck your feet under. And despite it having a tripod design, so long as the weight is back here, which is where you bench, it's quite stable. This is an example of spending not a lot of money on a bench that I think you could use for a long time. Now, if you're a 1,000-pound bench presser, I wouldn't recommend this bench. But if you're a normal human like Nathan and Sam, then I think this could work. But I can understand people that really want the incline work from the start of their home gym, looking at an option like this and seeing it as appealing. Because it is. Over 20,000 reviews, 4.5 stars, 150 bucks, 800-pound weight capacity, 7 back pad adjustments, 3 bottom pad adjustments, and a foot roller. There's a lot to like, I understand. But you need to measure the cons and the pros to decide which is best for you. Okay, this is Coop and my honest opinions on the Flybird adjustable bench. The highest rated, well, the most rated adjustable bench on Amazon. 20,000 reviews, that's insane. Let me know what you think of the review. Have you used this bench? I'm sure some of you have. So many reviews. Let me know in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Peace.